Welcome back to the Partner Spotlight podcast with your host, Lex Mason, president of Weathermatic. This week, I'm joined by Dean DeSantis of DeSantis Landscape out of Portland and Seattle. Dean and his team have built an incredible culture around sustainability, efficiency, and innovation. Dean and I are going to talk through the hurdles of labor, hurdles of what technology is a good fit, and ultimately what he's doing to grow one of the top landscape companies in the country. So if you're ready, let's get growing. Dean, thanks so much for joining here on the Partner Spotlight podcast here. So this is the first one back. So you're going to be we'll be guinea pigs here together. How does that sound?
Sounds good. My pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite, Lex.
Absolutely. Well, we'll jump right into it. So you and I have a lot in common around the family business dynamic and some of kind of the upbringing and into the industry. But why don't we go back a little before that and talk about just your background, how you even got exposed to landscaping, anything in the youth that kind of put you on this trajectory to get into and own and operate ultimately a landscape business. But share with us a little bit of that there.
For sure. So yeah, I'm a second generation owner of DeSantis Landscapes. So my father started the business in 1974. So next year it'll actually be 50 years in business. So we're pretty proud of that. That's a good long run. Yeah, so I was 8 years old when my dad started the business, and of course, grew up in and around the business, working summers and through high school and college and all that sort of thing. But once I graduated from the University of Oregon with a business degree, I was not planning to go in the landscape industry. And I went off and had a whole other career, which in hindsight, I think was a great move for me. It really offered me an opportunity to, get different work experiences, have different bosses, see how different, organizations work. And so right after university, I went to Tokyo, Japan. And I taught English for about 2 years in Tokyo.
Wow,
which was a fabulous experience to be there at that time. It was really a boom time in Japan. So that was super fun. Then after that, I just spent the next year just traveling around, kind of just backpack on my back, and visited 22 countries in that next year. So mostly in Asia, a little bit in Europe. But that was great. I came back, did a little bit of landscaping while I was trying to figure out what my next steps were, and ended up joining the Peace Corps. So I ended up going to Ecuador for a couple of years in South America. Spent 2 years there, and just had a fabulous experience. Actually, let me take that back. The first year was a struggle. I'm learning Spanish. I'm in this new culture that, and you're by yourself, you're alone. There's some other volunteers around, but they were a long ways away, but by bus. And anyway, the second year really made it all worth it. And the thing you'll be interested in, Lex, is I got involved with another Peace Corps volunteer who was an engineer, and we built water systems. So the Water for Life program that you guys do really resonates with me, because we were able to bring running water to 3 different communities that had never had water, in their homes before. So
I've never heard that. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. I had these great experiences. These images, I just think back, and this is 30 some years ago, of these kids walking down to the river with the buckets on their head, bringing water back home. And then, after we got done with these systems, they had a tap right there at their house. So that was pretty meaningful and impactful work. Anyway, so that was a fantastic experience. Came back to the States after that, and went to graduate school, got a degree in intercultural relations. I was really fascinated with cultures at that time, and then got into education and training. So I spent a number of years really traveling around doing conferences. I worked for AmeriCorps at the time, and we were doing conferences. So a lot of education, training kinds of things. And but then my kids were born, and I was traveling. Here's my 2 little kids at home, and that's my big turning point. And it was really about family. Like, I don't really enjoy being on the road when my kids are at home, and my wife's, I have twins, so there's my wife with two little babies at home. And so that's really when it was one Father's Day. My dad was sitting down with me, and he was kind of like, I've got to figure out some sort of exit strategy. And that's really kind of where the conversation began. And I came back to the family business, and that was in 2001, and haven't looked back. It's
Man,
been a
that's
fun
so
ride.
from world traveler or from college to Tokyo to Peace Corps to teaching. You lived a couple lifetimes before getting into landscaping.
For sure, yeah. And it was fantastic. I really, if there are other, folks out there that are in a family business, I highly recommend getting some other experience outside the family business, and you'll bring a lot more back to the business, I think, just from having that experience and opportunities. You're able to, I think, give some new perspective to the business.
Without a doubt. Yeah. The when I look at what I did, granted, I came straight out of college into our family's business, but I also was involved, pretty much from since I could walk and talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I would spend summers, interning either for other businesses, even a vendor of ours to learn, that side of it. Even work for a landscape company for summer to really
Oh,
understand
yeah, nice.
how that piece of it went. And boy,
Mm-hmm.
did I underestimate the heat there. Working in Texas and pulling pipe in the summer is a
Mm-hmm.
fun gig. So
Yeah.
let's go back to so Tokyo teaching English as a second language, then the Peace Corps work. So where did kind of your heart for that start? What got you going down that path? Was there any life experience that really drew you into the Peace Corps?
Yeah, I think my first trip abroad was in seventh grade. One of I had a Spanish teacher who just kind of said to our class, "Hey, I'm gonna go to Mexico for a trip," and just did kind of it wasn't really a study abroad program, but it was just she just organized this, and there was, I don't know, maybe 8 of us or so that went on this trip, and that just kind of started my fascination, I think, with cultures and travel. I did, during high school, we hosted Japanese exchange students all 4 years of my high school experience, and then my junior year of high school, I went to Japan and did a true exchange and stayed with one of the kids' families that had stayed with us. So yeah, I probably attributed to my parents, just having that openness to
Yeah.
let me go see the world uh, yeah. So it's been a fascination for a long time.
Well, and I think about that and how you apply it to the business that we're in now. There are most of these businesses, right? I know DeSantis and I know a lot of our other partners as well. There are some pretty, some pretty delineated different cultures that all exist within these businesses. And then of course there's like the single, culture that a newbie coming into a business like yours is going to feel around them, but there's people from different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different stages in life. So how does all of that play into now leading a team of multi-generational, age-wise different folks, multicultural folks? So you feel like that prepared you to lead DeSantis today?
Definitely. And I think it's about empathy. I think it's putting yourself in that other person's shoes of kind of where are they coming from. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, one thing I definitely learned from all that travel and different cultural experiences. I mean, at the core, we all have similar, interests. We care about our family. We care about, our own personal success, and just we want to get better. I mean, that's common wherever you go in the world. But there's different, what we call, mores, or the things, how we do things on a day-to-day basis. That's different. Those, being aware of that and cognizant of that is an important thing. I mean, whether you're from Texas, I'm from Oregon, we probably do some things a little bit differently. Someone from the South, so even there's, in a country, there's uniqueness. It was the same in Ecuador. There was really different regions of that country that were different. So it's just being aware of that and taking that into account as a leader, that there's some commonality, there's some common humanity in people, but there's also some uniqueness that we need to be aware of. And
Yeah, value system differences.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
everything that's important to me might not be important to you, and the same with your team members there, and the empathy comment about. I think we're also on figuring out what matters to them, right?
Mm-hmm,
What
mm-hmm.
drives people, and so you can go down the whole DISC or Myers-Briggs, route. I think also just spending quality time with people and asking them what matters to them, but then watching as they go through different situations to kind of see, because sometimes what people will say matters to them is a little different than what you observe really, truly matters there. So that's great. I might take this a little different direction here. You and I were chatting before we pressed record here a little bit about bringing in new generations or new, more kind of segments of the workforce into landscaping. A lot of times the industry gets a bad rap as being very one-dimensional, very just, hey, this is a grass cutting business. That's all we do. And I know, my personal life, when I start sharing some of the success stories and the opportunities that are created by business owners, team members in the landscaping or green industry, it really shocks people who don't have that firsthand experience. So, Dean, what are some of the things that you shared with me about how you're helping expand the hiring pool of folks interested or driving people into the landscaping industry?
Definitely. I think, one of the things that we've all been talking about in the industry for years now is just the challenge with labor. And, how do we get people, interested in this industry? How do we get people trained up? Irrigation technicians, notoriously hard to find people that have been, that are skilled at that. Spray technicians, all these, more a little bit specialized kind of positions can be super hard to find those folks. So I felt like, the answer is we've got to start growing our own, developing some of our own, right here. And so the Oregon Landscape Contractors Association, I'm the past president of OLCA, and now I serve on the academic committee with some other contractors, some other professors, of some horticulture programs and some community colleges and four-year universities here in Oregon. It's a great group, a mixture of folks that get together, and we put together this presentation, and we go around to, we've talked to a lot of the FFA advisors around the state, and there's several high schools that have horticulture programs, and we've kind of done some email blasts out to these teachers saying, hey, we're available to come speak to your class. And, mostly started out, remote, doing Zoom calls to classes and stuff. We've started more and more these days, doing in-person, classroom presentations to do exactly what you're talking about. Just show people the breadth and depth of the industry. We've got a couple of designers who are on that committee from different companies. They bring in, plan sheets, and just kind of show, that element of the business. We bring in, I brought in SmartLink controllers and a weather station and show kids, hey, there's technology in this industry as well. And so I think that's what we're trying to do, is just show people the breadth of the industry and the different opportunities that are available. It's been fun. It's been really fun to get engaged with the younger generation and see some of those light bulbs going off. Offering internships to some of these folks as well, just to kind of help them get a taste of the industry. Been a fantastic work that we've been doing, I think, with high school age students.
Yeah, one thing to kind of carry on that piece. So my youngest brother, Ben here, graduated a couple of years ago and still has a handful of younger friends that are just now coming out of school. And one thing for especially, the bright-eyed and ambitious types, it was sharing with them that there's over 20,000 individuals just here in the U.S. that have built a landscape business doing more than $3.5 million in revenue.
Wow.
That's incredible, right? Yeah, how many, so every time you see the trucks and the trailers and the mowing equipment in those trucks going down the street, it almost puts a, wow, like I want to be a business owner. I want to work for myself. I want to grow these things. And there is a lot, there's so much opportunity in this industry. To your point, yes, we have to keep solving those major limitations of growth, like labor, and those things. And I think the best way, and it's what you guys are doing, it's ultimately how we got connected here in the first place, is putting technology into places where, where we're limited. And just like you guys are using, some of our technology, you're also experimenting and implementing other technologies and things like that. We're having to do the same thing here at Weathermatic, is find ways to, stretch people further, let them do the things that they're the absolute best at, and find ways to supplement those tedious tasks with either technology or other resources that those might be, their core competencies and things like that. But bringing in the next generation, I think it always will be a struggle. The dream of going into, going and working on Wall Street, or, in the investment banking and like finance world and that kind of thing. And when you look at the pay comparisons between, first year landscape account managers or production managers compared to what, year 1 to year 3 or 4, finance, jobs pay, I think a lot of people would be pretty surprised about what typically comes out on top there. Now, as you age, through the process, kind of 4 or 5 years into it, there's some things that you've got to do in landscaping to keep up with kind of the escalating pay models of what, is present in the finance world. But there is an incredible amount of opportunity here for, the entrepreneurial spirited people, as well as the people that want to, just like you said, that want to be home every night, with their family and their kids, and do that, because Lord knows I know what a kind of wear and tear constant travel can be. And so it's been a blessing to rein that in a little bit over the past couple of years. So,
and that's certainly something that we talk with these high school groups about, is hey, if you're interested in starting your own business, this is a great industry for that, because really it's a pretty low barrier to entry kind of industry, really. You got a pickup truck and a lawnmower, you can be in business in most states. So we talk about that as well. And the other thing I'll say too about that group is it's great because we're all competitive. There's a number of us that are competitors. And that's one great thing I think we've got here in Oregon. I've got a lot of great competitors that, we respect one another, and we compete, and then we get on a committee like this together, work together to help the industry out as a whole. So it's we're pretty fortunate to have that kind of competitive environment, here in our area.
Yeah, and that's one thing. I think we were talking about this before we hopped on, but it's so unique. I don't know if it's something in the Portland, Seattle water, or if it's just a different way of life. But I get the benefit of getting to travel with a couple of those regional competitors there that service those areas. And what you're saying is true, and that is very not true in most other cities that we go into. That there's a healthy competitive spirit that everybody has with one another, but at the end of the day, you were mentioning a couple, competitors' names that you serve on boards with, and that you call when things pop up, and you run ideas past each other. And it's there's so much work in those areas to go around, that yes, it's healthy to be competitive and move and grow and things like that. I
still want to win and beat them. Don't get me wrong.
Amen. You and me both, brother. So I'm in the same boat. I'll never get too, it's a enemies close, friends close, and enemies closer kind of deal. Maybe, I don't know, but winning is still the goal there. So let's dive in a little bit into some of the. I know we hit a major milestone with you guys on the Weathermatic side here a couple months ago, and so would love to dive into that a little bit, but also would love to hear any other kind of innovations or new anything that you're trying, right, to any other landscape business owner that might be tuning into this. What are you at DeSantis doing to fight the labor crisis and any other kind of obstacles that you're running into? So give us a little peek into what's going on in your world.
Well, as far as the Weathermatic is concerned, I mean, I think it was 2019, 2020, something like that. We became one of, kind of early. We were actually the first premier partner in the state of Oregon, and I was just looking at the numbers yesterday, and we have grown our gross profit in our irrigation service department by 382%.
Oh my!
Since that,
you're just saying that to be nice to me.
I am not saying that to be nice. I rechecked those numbers, and it's crazy. I mean, it's been a fantastic journey for us. And And it's taken some. We've tried a few things that that didn't work. Went this route. Different ways of selling the SmartLink service. But it's been we've put some incentives in front of our irrigation techs, and that's worked for us to really incentivize those guys to when they're out doing there's typical monitoring, they're incentivized to find some things to repair.
I have yet to find an unrepairable system.
Exactly.
Even and especially stuff that I've put in. Yeah, mm-hmm. There is always some. I mean, think plastic, electronics, wear and tear outside, under high pressure, in the sun. Man, if anyone finds a perfect system, let me know. But I have yet to find one yet.
Yeah, and that number doesn't even include the trips that we've saved to savings on fuel, or just the time that it might take someone to go out and make adjustments on a clock, because we can just now I can pull up my phone and I can make that adjustment. So there's just been a number of benefits to us. We've really appreciated the partnership that we've had with Weathermatic. The support has been great. Hector and Perry have been just fantastic for us to come and train our folks. And so, yeah, and we continue to kind of improve and improve our systems, our proposal systems, our audit, the way we're doing our audits and our proposals, just to make that a more efficient process. So just overall, it's been a great partnership. So I appreciate Weathermatic for that.
Yeah.
The other things, the thing that I'm really excited about is the data analytics. We've taken, we use Power BI, is the tool that we use. So we're able to take, we're on Aspire is the software that we use, and we're able to take data out of Aspire. There's good tools in Aspire to kind of tell us, job costing information, things like that. But with Power BI, we're able to break that down even further, more granular kind of focus. So, for example, when we're going through our contract renewal process, we can really get specific with where are we hot on hours, where are we right on, where do we need to tweak a contract? Is it in the pruning service? Is it in the irrigation service? Is the regular weekly visit? Those kind of things, we're really able to break it down. We just bought a nursery last year, so we're just getting started with starting to grow some of our own plant material. We're able to look at our purchasing data. How many Carpinus did we buy last year? How many acers, Circinatums did we buy? And really get that broken down to give us more data as to what should we be growing in this nursery now. So there's a lot of power in data analytics. It's way above my head as far as how to set that up. So I've got my partner Brian in the business, who's a wizard with that kind of thing and loves to dig into that. He's really been the leader around that, and it's been a great tool for us. So data analytics, throughout our lives are, just kind of driving so much, and it's super important for us to I think pick that up and learn from the information there.
And I think that goes back to the point of the opportunities that exist in the landscape world. I mean, 10, certainly 20 years ago, the idea of data analytics or a tool like Power BI pulling dashboards out of, an operating system like Boss or Aspire or, anything like that, and running that was such a foreign concept. But when you look at like yourselves and the other leading companies out there, like data is your friend. You can't manage what you don't know. Right. And so I think there was a really big push. And so I'd love your opinion on how we get this done as an industry. But there was a big push about, around the finance and accounting side of landscaping of, know your numbers, hire a fractional CFO, get a competent controller to come in and work for you. All of those things, I think, were the kind of the calling card of the, kind of all the industry consultants of what they've been pushing for the past 10 or 15 years has been around the finance and accounting piece. And it's crazy. I had a conversation about this on Monday on the holiday about this exactly, that I think the next calling card or the next, kind of the new frontier for landscape business owners to plow into is data analytics. And we're doing, we just released, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but we just released our insights dashboard and SmartLink, where we're starting to report on hey, how many remote commands did you send? What time of year are you doing those kind of things? What's the kind of real-time savings of time, of mileage on vehicles, of fuel, and things like that to give you insight into, hey, is your team using the tool that you guys are investing very heavily in, on that respect? And then, on the flip side, are we getting our inspections done that we're supposed to do this month? Are we turning those into proposals? Are our customers approving those? And so data, we've done those functions in SmartLink for 7 or 8 years, but we've never reported on them themselves. And so we've seen the power of just showing our partners, hey, this is what your team did last week. This is what they did this month or this year. And so I think data-led decisions is going to play a much, much bigger and vocal role in landscaping in the years to come.
For sure. I mean, I think it was maybe Peter Drucker who said something like, you get what you measure. You're going to get the results of what you measure. And so, and it's interesting because you oftentimes when you start measuring things and looking at the data, I've been surprised by, I thought I knew this business pretty well, and sometimes like, oh, I didn't think about that aspect, and it's really critical. Pay attention to your numbers, your data. The other thing, and I want to maybe pivot a little bit here, Lex, is data is important. Obviously, technology is important, but at the end of the day, I think we still are dealing with people.
Yep.
We still have to deal with culture, workplace culture. And, going back to the empathy comment earlier and just cultures and stuff, that's the foundation and the bedrock of any strong business is there's got to be a strong culture in place. And so that's another thing that we've really focused on at DeSantis Landscapes is just, creating a great place to work, and being that company that everyone looks to, that employer of choice, in our area.
So share with me, Dean. I mean, so many people throw that around there, and I'm learning every day too, right? Of how do I do that more and more? And for me, it's just being honest. It's been difficult, right? Because we're leading a team that greater than 50% of our resources are remote because we sell all over the country, and we have sales and techs and support and everything like that are the front line for us. What are some things that you're doing that maybe from our business all the way to somebody that is, just kind of starting out on their own in the landscaping space? How do you build and become that employer of choice and build the reputation like you guys have?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, the common things that we frequently talk about, the barbecues and recognized birthdays, anniversaries, things like that. Those are always going to be important to people. But one of the things that I actually heard a speaker at, I've been part of a Bruce Wilson peer group. And the very first peer group meeting that I went to, there was a speaker there. His name's David Friedman, and he wrote a book called Culture by Design. I'd highly recommend the book. I'd recommend his organization. And what he said it really struck me. He started talking about, who among you has a budget? And of course, most of the room raises their hand, and who's got a marketing plan? I'll raise their hand. And he says, who's got a culture plan? And everyone's kind of like, what are you talking about? And so that was kind of his lead in, and what he was talking about really. And, we've all got, over the years, we focused on our mission statement and maybe core values. I remember at DeSantis Landscapes, that was part of the beginning of every safety meeting, we would recite the mission statement. And that was, going to get that, kind of ingrained in everyone. And then we were going to create beauty and respect nature and continually improve ourselves and our company and gain the trust and respect of our community. That's our mission statement. But it started to occur to me, like, how are people actually living that mission, and how are we making that come to life? And what David talked about was exactly that. He was like, he developed a system or a program that's, basically he calls it the fundamentals. So we have the DeSantis fundamentals. There are 25 behaviors that we believe lead to success at DeSantis Landscapes. And those behaviors will also then lead to meeting our mission statement. So part of what we do is that, so there's 25 of them, and these are ones that we came up with on our own. They kind of helped us tweak some of the language and things, but every week we focus on a different fundamental. So for example, this week, it's fundamental number 13, look ahead and anticipate. And so every meeting that we have, every one of our branch meetings, our safety meetings at the branches with the crews, it starts off with the fundamental of the week. So we talk about that fundamental, and people share what it means to them personally. We do a video that gets sent out to everyone. And what we found, we've been doing this for about 4 years now. They're just life lessons, things like take ownership, or be a fanatic about response time. Just their behaviors are things that you can actually act on. And it really, what's been really fun for me to watch is just the way people take it. They'll talk about, teaching their kids about the fundamental, or, taking it home with them. And to me, that shows kind of maybe some of the depth of the impact that this has. Because people are looking for something more than just a job. Just
something bigger than themselves.
Yeah, we're all looking for something bigger. What else is out there?
Yeah.
And so this kind of gives it more of a purpose of, that it's not just we're not just landscaping. We're doing, we're becoming better people. So that's one thing that's really helped us. 2 years ago, we bought a barbecue trailer. That's been pretty fun. So we take around our smoker and our barbecue. We do barbecues at each branch, and that's fastest way to people's heart is through food, right? So
no kidding. Yes, amen to that. So your 25 foundations or principles there. Yeah, there's a poster that circulates, on LinkedIn or just in emails and stuff like that I get probably once a year, once every 6 months. I see it pop back up, but it popped back up the other day. And it was like 10 things that take zero talent to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all effort-based things. It was like show up on time, zero talent to show up on time,
right?
Positive attitude, right? High energy, willingness to learn, teamwork, humility. Like those are all things that require absolutely not a single talented bone in your body to execute on those things right there. And we've seen if 10 for 10, individuals are incredibly successful. But as many of those things that we can stack up, and it's a great thing, because we just hired a handful of people that are just a couple of years out of school, right? And so it was a great foundation for us to actually use that as, hey, here's the bar. Absolutely, this takes no skill, no talent whatsoever for these 10 things to happen. So think about, every time before you walk into a meeting, every time when you interact with the customer or an internal person here at work, these are all things that, yes, they require effort and intentionality, but no skill. There's no talent to have a good attitude. You either have the good attitude, you either choose to have the good attitude or choose not to.
Right. So one thing, let me show you real quick. We have let me grab one here. So when someone gets hired, we have this. So these are the 25 fundamentals. And so when you get hired in your onboarding process, everyone gets this card. It's actually kind of wallet size. And I've seen so many of our employees, they keep these in their wallet. And when the new employees read this, they're just kind of like, wow, okay, this might be a different place to work here. I mean, they really have laid this out. And so, that's been just a good way for us to kind of establish who we are, because that's what culture is, right? It's how do you do things on a daily basis? That's what culture, if it's a simple kind of definition of culture, it's how things are done around here. No kidding. If you don't define it, it'll get defined for you.
I love that. That's I'm going to have to steal that here at some point, but having that booklet where it's, the effort, number one, that it takes to going in and like thinking through every word and then publishing that and then sticking to it. Cause we do the same thing, right? We have our mission statement and things like that we read off, and we added to it a couple of years ago, a couple of like vision, like a vision statement, a mission statement, and then a couple of like key words that we hold, kind of near and dear to us. And so there's 7 of them. And so we'll pick on one of those, and we'll share, hey, how did somebody exemplify this, right? Integrity this week and that kind of piece. But going back to your point about, people taking that home with them, is you spend such a large percentage of your time at work, And then when you combine that with at work or, asleep, such a great percentage of your time are wrapped up into those two things. And so how can you use, work from the employer standpoint, right? How can you use that to invest in individuals so that when they go home, they're living a better life? They're giving more to their family, not just monetary things, but how are we creating such a great environment here and nurturing that when they go home, they're a better person. When they go home, they're a better person over time than when they got here. And we see loyalty, and we see tenure, and just drive. All of that come from doing that, because life is way too short to try to milk it for every penny versus kind of give back and influence and help people. So well, before we wrap up here, any other kind of future perspectives of where you see this the industry going, any new things on the horizon that you're dabbling with or experimenting with to see how we solve more problems together there?
I probably don't have a ton new to say here. I think we're all hearing about the autonomous mowers and robotic mowers, things like that. That's of interest. The electrification of our fleets. That's something that I think all of us are paying attention to, and it's starting to implement. That to me is exciting and interesting. Especially we've been a company that's been focused on sustainability for a couple of decades now, and so that particularly the electrification aspect is super interesting to me. I think there's stuff around our facilities infrastructure to be able to have enough power to power all these batteries for all the equipment and the vehicles and those sorts of things that we're still kind of grappling with. I think definitely technology, but I just want to emphasize that it's still about people. That's at the end of the day, it's about taking care of people, and whether it's our clients or whether it's our team, that's what's going to make us a success. And I don't think that's changing.
I don't either. As long as the number one line item on both of our annual budgets are people, then we better wake up and realize that we're in the people business. So how do we inspire? How do we motivate? How do we sustain? And just give a better life to those that are looking for it? So, well, anyway, with that, hey, can't thank you enough for this, and really enjoyed talking. So, Dean DeSantis, thanks again.
Thanks a lot, Lex. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, hey, this was fun. Thank you, man. That was the 300+% thing was a curveball. That's incredible. Congratulations.
I know, right? I looked at that and like, seriously? Yeah, it's been pretty phenomenal.
Well, man, that's incredible. Had
last year was over 120% year over year from the year before.
So it's like this has been
was huge for us. Last year was a big year, and this year we're looking at, I think, around 40. Year to date, we're like 48% ahead of last year. So still,
and you're just getting kicked off with the season. Yeah, no kidding. How many? Just out of curiosity, what was the head count impact in order to generate that? Like, have you had to double or triple like the technicians in order to deliver that, or how is that?
Yeah, for sure. I would say when we first started, we probably had 3 techs total, and now we've got 6. So doubled the head count on techs out there. And we've kind of taken you guys' suggestion and had, we've moved to having more of a junior tech going out to identify issues, just to do those audits, and then a more senior tech coming out to actually do the repair. So that's helped out and I think just sometimes some of the data analytics really showed us, who was producing and who wasn't. Like, all the revenues coming from this tech here, and this one's, he's got 25% of what this guy's got. What's going on? He's not. Yeah. He's just kind of pencil whipping things. And
well, I think a lot of people, when we were kind of originally promoting the idea of whether it's a carrot or a stick or both around motivating techs to find, repair work, is not, it never came from the spirit of, let's gouge our customers and get as many dollars out of them. It's there are zero perfect irrigation systems. Every single one of them have so many issues that, candidly, if you were to give them all to your customer at once, they'd never approve it because there's so much. But how do we consistently make improvement recommendations, fix what's technically broken, but all the way down. And this is the thing, Dean, that we're trying to figure out how to do, and we haven't figured it out yet, but nozzle age is such a massive waste of water when you look at it. It's like the number one impact that you can have on water reduction is the smart controller going from watering a fixed amount of time to, weather-based programming. And, we've solved that. That's number one. The second largest impact that you can have is ensuring that your nozzling, number one, is correct. And then number two is up to date, meaning, I always give the example of like water, a river. Are rocks on the bottom of a river smooth, or are they jagged? They're smooth because you got high pressure, high velocity of water that's running across those surfaces, for decades and centuries and so on. What do you think water does at 30 or 40 or 50 PSI going across a couple little plastic grooves for 3 or 4 years? Right. Wears them out instantly. And so people start going, oh, well, my system's getting older, the pressure's dropping. I'm going, no, the pressure's not dropping. The nozzles are worn out. Let's replace them. And so we're trying to come up with ways now. Our big push is how do we help contractors get indicators that give them the ability to go and show their client, hey, yes, this nozzle is broken because it's putting out 2 or 3 times as much water as what it was designed to do. And so any thoughts, like just over the next couple of weeks as you kind of go through that? That's what I think is our big push is how do we, we thought about like if it's just a pure date code based, punch in a couple of date codes of the system that you're managing. And then we have some timers, like best practices, like a nozzle is going to last 5 years, a valve diaphragm is going to last, 10 years before it starts leaking and stuff like that. If we just do like a pure time thing, or if there's any tool to measure or, kind of like scale item, but there's such
that's a good point. So I love you. I love the example of the rocks at the bottom of the river. I mean, that's people can relate to that. Like, of course, it's gonna wear a nozzle down too, just like it does with the rocks.
So what do you think? A slow moving water, or in a very broad space, or fast compressed high PSI water going across brittle plastic? Like, what's going to wear out faster? The nozzle is trash after 4 or 5 years. And so when's the last time? So that's kind of the route that we're trying to go down, is how do we give, companies like yours almost like the authority to tell their customers that their system is broken, even though it doesn't look like it's broken. Because if if you had a hose if you had a piece of drip that was cut and just pouring water down the street, that's pretty obvious that that's broken. But you can't really tell as easily if that nozzle is just twice as wide as it was originally.
Yeah, maybe it's some kind of white paper or something like that shows some research of the wear on a nozzle over time. Something like that might be useful for, say, our account managers to go to a property manager and just show them, like, here's what the research shows of how it gets degraded, how much it gets degraded, year over year. That might be something that's useful, for our teams. The other thing that I know I didn't mention in the interview here, but is just the amount of water savings. And that's something that's difficult for us to measure. Most clients don't know; they don't have a meter on just their irrigation system. So getting water data from them is always kind of a challenge, because what we want to prove to them is how much water we're saving them. Yeah, our revenue's up X percent, but we want to show how your cost, Mr. and Mrs. Client, is down. So that's something that has been a challenge for us and we've been kind of thinking about how can we, show the results.
We're building a part of that insights tab that I was talking about is really broken into 3 sections, and one is labor reduction. The second tab is inspection and proposal progress. Are we getting them all done? Are we getting them submitted and approved to clients? And then the third tab, which we're not done developing yet, is around a quick, like, portfolio wide, and then in a site-based tool that will show water savings. And so we're trying to link together, hey, if you know what your water rates are, input them here. And candidly, we know what a lot of them are. So we're going to preload the system and show, hey, a normal irrigation operation is going to be, 15 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week for turf zones, or this for, drip zones. And so here's what a normal schedule looks like. Here's what, because we also have a bunch of systems that are still in basic mode, like in every zip code. Right. And so we're going to be able to share, like, hey, here's what basic programming the average is in Portland. Here's what your site is based on the technology that DeSantis has deployed on the job, to be able to show them, hey, yes, we don't have, 5 years of water bills and the full estimate, but here's what a site right down the street that's not doing this, how they're performing. Here's how you're performing. So those are some of the things around your data comment that we are running after. How do we start to kind of visualize the impact that these things bring?
Yeah. Perry did mention, he threw out some numbers. He said something like, you've saved 51,000 miles of vehicle, trips or whatever. And I was kind of like, how'd you figure that out?
Yeah, I need to hold on.
So I'll be interested to see, when this kind of gets fleshed out a little bit of, what the data is looking like.
So this is that tab that's now live up here. You'll see at this is the normal landing page for SmartLink. Is like basically a visualization of all of your properties and all that. But up here now on Insights, if you click this, it will give you a look at, over the past 12 months, what your labor savings has been, based on, let me see what I think the dollar rate.
Based on what, let's see here.
Anyway, so number of miles, this is basically the number of remote commands or program changes that your team has done from their phones or from their computers in lieu of doing those things in person.
Okay.
Basically how many hours, your team sent 1,400 remote updates. That's not just like turn a zone on and off, like while they're doing an inspection. Like that's like sending a new program to the controller, adjusting something that otherwise would have had to be done in person. Over the past 12 months here. And then here's like kind of a year by year comparison showing how that is pacing kind of over time. And so, which we think is pretty neat. And this is that inspections and proposal piece of, hey, who's doing the bulk of the inspections. So like this month you have 427 controllers like logged in there as needing inspections. And, so far we've got 84 of those 427 done. And I think you guys are in quarterlies. But anyway, just kind of gives you a little better look at, here's how many proposals were generated. Here's how many were not needed. And then, hey, we've got 300, the gap between this is we've got 375, proposals that we either need to zero out or we need to send them to clients and things like that. So these are some of the tools.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to dig into that. Check that out.
And this is the water saving piece that's still under development, but we're trying to do some things here to give you a little better kind of backdrop to show clients as to what you're doing for them in lieu of not having any water bills. So
perfect. Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Lex.
Take care.